Hello, and welcome to the Running Hook Podcast, hosted by Alex Burr, a member of the Running Hook Podcast Network. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Alex and Dylan Basketball Power Hour. Except, wait a minute. Dylan, we have a guest today, JD Hall. JD, welcome to the Alex and Dylan Basketball Power Hour.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with my brothers, man.
Of course. And Dylan, in the tradition of throwing you curveballs when you expect fastballs, is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer?
Bro, how is it even a conversation? Like, he's top 10 in almost every passing metric out there. I don't care if he hasn't won a Super Bowl. And someone earlier on ESPN was saying how he ranks above Marino in a lot of these categories. And it's like, I know he played longer, but I don't see how it's even a debate. I just really don't.
So okay, where would you draw the line for quarterback, like in this era, right? Like, Brees is obviously a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Is Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer?
Well, see, I think him and Matt Ryan are interesting because they still have, 6-7 years probably. And they very well, like, if Matt Stafford gets traded to the Colts or the Bears or like a team like that has like a good supporting cast but like needs a quarterback, or Washington and like wins a Super Bowl or at least makes it, that changes everything. So for guys like that, it's tough to answer right now. But like, just off the top of my head, I think the line would probably be someone like Eli Manning. And like, I don't know whether I'd give it to him or not, because I mean, those two Super Bowls, like those teams were not built like around Eli, but he complemented what they had going on so well that I think you probably give him the nod because he made huge plays in both those Super Bowls. And like,
I mean, Mario Manningham's, or whoever the dude's helmet was.
Yeah, David Tyree,
that's who it was.
Yeah. And Eli, he spun out of a sack to make that throw. So it was just a great play all around. But I think that's the line, because Eli, if you take even just one of those Super Bowls away, it's like, okay, he's probably Joe Flacco, like he's not a Hall of Famer. He had a really nice career, but the second Super Bowl, I think, puts him over the top. And like, that's probably where I draw the line. And Rivers is definitely better than Eli. So,
JD, is this how you expected us to kick off the basketball podcast?
No, but I like it.
You gotta keep them guessing, JD. You can't just throw fastballs every time you're pitching.
Nah, if that was the case, I would have made it to Major League Baseball by the time I was 13.
You could not have hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball when you were 13, JD.
Hey, I'm telling you. You should have seen me out there. Marveled my coaches. My coach was a baseball player throughout his college years. I was smoking his balls, sending them flying. He said, "You know what? You keep at it. You're gonna have a bright future in this game."
Oh, it would be so nice to know a Major League Baseball player. But alas, we're not here for Major League Baseball or for NFL, although those are great detours by myself. I'm such a great driver. I make sure we stay on the road at all times. But we're obviously here to talk about the NBA. And before we get into our teams for the week, which are the Hawks, the Spurs, and the Knicks, we should probably talk about what's going on in Portland. Yes, if you wanted to hear our opinions on COVID, we gave those on the last podcast, and I don't think anything we said last week wouldn't apply to any situations this week. So CJ McCollum and Jusuf Nurkic are both out. CJ has something going on with his foot. I believe it's a hairline fracture on his left foot. And then Nurkic, I believe, broke his wrist. That poor guy can't catch a break. Dylan, are the Portland Trailblazers going to enter the Cade Cunningham sweepstakes, or do you think Damian Lillard will keep them out of it?
Well, see, that's what sucks for them is like Dame is too good. I mean, if you like, they've had a bunch of different rosters over the years, and they've had a bunch of guys come in and out, and like no matter who's there, they're always at least in contention. You know, like he's just so he raises their floor way too high for them to have a shot at a top pick. But man, I just feel so bad for them because Zach Collins has already been out. And like, if you have Zach Collins stepping in for Nurkic, it's different. Because, I mean, they had Collins playing the 4, and he really should be playing the 5. So if he was able to step into a role like that, I don't think it would be as dramatic of a drop-off as it is with Enes Kanter stepping in there and Harry Giles being his backup. But, man, like, taking CJ out of it too, and, like, you can't mess with foot injuries, you know? Like, a hairline fracture doesn't sound that bad, but, I mean, you can't walk on that, you know? Like, it takes a lot of rehab, and I haven't seen what the timetable is, but, I mean, both of those injuries are bad. Like, they're gonna be out for a while. And we've been talking about the depth of the West all year, and it's not going to take much for them to start slipping. Even with Houston trading Harden, I mean, they still have a roster that's in contention, and like, you know, teams like that are going to take advantage of this and just leave Portland in the dust. So I don't think they're going to be bad enough to be, you know, top 5 pick category, but their playoff chances are definitely slipping right now.
So I guess I'll swing the rock around. You know, we're gonna pass the ball around the perimeter, get it to the open 3-point shooter in JD Hall. JD, so do you think? So as you know, the top 10 seeds this year, the bottom 4, 7 through 10, are in contention for the play-in game, which might get them into the playoffs. Do you think that the Blazers are going to still, even with these 2 injuries, can stay in the top 10?
That's tough. Because, I mean, when you look at the upcoming schedule outside of the Memphis games being postponed, they got to see the Knicks, OKC, Houston, Chicago, Milwaukee, Philly, New York. How many of those games do they win? I mean, yeah, they may have the best player in a lot of them, but they won't have the best team. You missing your best center. CJ having a career year. And then you already struggle on defense. And I think I can see them beating OKC easily. Every other game is a shot in the dark. I mean, for instance, people would think the Chicago game would be a walk, right? Now think of this. Chicago can match you score for score. Dame get a bucket, Zach LaVine get a bucket. Then who would you say? Melo, second scorer for
Rodney Hood, probably, if I had like based on what I saw in the Atlanta game.
Yeah, but he's just getting back. How can we expect that kind of production every night? Who's to say he even got that win yet? You know, him and Melo, can we say they gonna outscore the rest of Chicago guys like Kobe White, Markkanen, Porter, Garrett Temple caught fire not long ago. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna be tough when you gotta go through this kind of schedule coming up, and he's gonna be gone 4 weeks. CJ gone 4 weeks. That's gonna be tough. The West is too stacked for that. I think when you look at all the other teams around them, you can literally say that they may or may not be just as good. Memphis is right there. With CJ gone, can we say that they better? It's a chance. With Nurkic being out, it's a chance. They get Jaren Jackson Jr. back anytime soon. Yeah, they better easily. The Spurs, Aldridge trying to get his legs back under him from being back. They still gotta get Derek White back. But with what they have now, just the pieces they have now, they actually can contend with them. Can we say they right foot better They around the same, just depending on the kind of night the Spurs young guys have. Dallas, they better. Just got their guys back. Denver, they're better. Just got their guys back. Know what I'm saying? Then, as Dylan said, Houston got a team that could come up. All they need is everybody to be healthy. So I can't necessarily say they gonna hold that spot. Really, it's interesting to see what place they fall to after this stretch of games. Like within these next 5 games, they could possibly fall down to maybe 11th.
It's crazy to be looking at the standings so far in the league, right? Because we're only 15 games in, but you guys are pointing out rightly that the West is a lot tough. Like if this was the Eastern Conference, I think all of us would probably agree that Damian Lillard could carry them to like probably a top 6 seed in the East this year. The East has been really ravaged by injuries. Now Brooklyn has 3, like probably 2 of, maybe 3 of the best 5 players in the whole conference. It's going to be rough sledding for morale in the East. Like if you're in the East, if the Blazers were in the East, I could see them maintaining, right? But I don't think they're better than the Spurs, like even with all these injuries, right? The Spurs just flew them the fuck out a couple of games ago. It's, again, you're right about Dallas and Denver. Sacramento might be better than they are, without Dame. So it's tough. Or it might be as good as they are, I'll say. So it's tough. Anything else, Dylan, you want to say before we move on to our teams for the week?
Well, again, I pulled the standings up, and I mean, as JD mentioned, Dallas and Denver have gone off to a slow start, and those are teams we know are going to pick it up at some point. So those 2 teams are both out of the playoffs right now. And then earlier I mentioned Houston as well. So and me and AB were texting the other day about Memphis. It doesn't matter what happens to Memphis; they're just going to win games. I mean, they held their own without Ja Morant. They haven't had Jaren Jackson. I think Valanciunas is battling some stuff right now, and they just figure it out anyway. So, I mean, there's just way too much depth for even if it's just a month without CJ. I mean, they're going to lose a ton of ground. So, I still believe in Dame. And maybe they make a late season run, but they're definitely going to have some ground to make up.
And Dame can't keep doing this to his body where he has to keep making a late season run so that they can get the 8th seed. Because It was only 8 games last year, but that must have been tough on his body where he had to drag the team out of the depths of because they were the 11th seed coming in, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, look at the scoring. Look at the outbursts he had in February, man. Just 50, 40, 40, 50. I mean, they going to start calling Damian Lillard the hunchback of Portland.
Okay. That's really good place to end it because that's a really fucking good nickname, JD. I'm kind of jealous that I didn't think of it. So since you're the guest here, we brought you on for a specific reason. The San Antonio Spurs are one of your 2 favorite teams. And yes, everyone says JD has a lot of favorite teams. I will clarify in your defense. You have 2 favorite players who were on your favorite teams.
Yes.
And then both got traded to the Wolves and the Raptors, and now they're on the Clippers and the Heat.
Yes.
So, with that out of the way, the Spurs are one of your favorite teams, and they had themselves a week. I have to avoid trying to say they had an interesting week because it's such a audio crutch. But so for the week, they lost to the Rockets on Thursday, and then they beat the Rockets on Saturday. They blew out the Blazers, like we mentioned, on Monday, and then yesterday they got their asses handed to them by the Golden State Warriors. So, JD, I'll start with you. And one of the things I've noticed when I'm watching the Spurs is that it seems like they just okay. DeJounte Murray, I'll start with him because you love DeJounte. We'll start on a positive note since it's your team.
Great place to start, AB.
So, what have you seen from watching DeJounte this year that has stood out that's different to you from what you've watched in the last couple of years?
I can put that in one word: aggressiveness. That's the one thing that anybody that know me know I love those all around kind of players. But to get a tall, long guard, I said about Lonzo, if he was more aggressive, I say it about LaMelo. LaMelo is that aggressive. If you play with that kind of aggressiveness, instantly you make a impact no matter what it is that you're doing. DeJounte, we already know that he's an athletic freak to be that skinny. But when you really just watch his game, quickness in his hands, he could turn any play into a fast break. He's so quick, he's so fast. He get through the smallest holes. He got a tight handle. One of the best rebounding point guards that's not named Luka or LeBron James in the game. His vision is very good. I mean, I seen him make some plays that it looked like he should have turned the ball over a couple times, and I think Pop just letting him be him. He never had a point guard as uniquely skilled and tall as DeJounte Murray. I mean, the closest was older Rod Strickland.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, and I mean the DeJounte. Every season you see Pop let the reins go, but this season in particular, that aggressiveness is actually leading his team, regardless of what anybody believe. It's DeJounte Murray that's making these things happen.
And so, yeah, DeJounte's been really aggressive. You know, one of the things that stood out is he's not shooting particularly great. I haven't checked the updated stats, but last I checked, he was shooting 44% from the field and 32% from three, which I mean, overall is fine for how many mid-range pull-ups he's taking. But Dylan, let's face it, we both knew coming into this Spurs week that one guy was going to stand out for the two of us. That was going to be Keldon Johnson. Dylan, what have you seen from Johnson that you've liked so far?
You know, I'm happy that he's played this way because really the first time I really got a good look at him last year was when he was in the bubble. I mean, that Spurs team last year was really good in the bubble, and they fell short of the playoffs, but they played like outside of Phoenix, they were one of the better bubble teams, if not the second best. And you know, he was one of the guys that was really reliable for them despite his lack of experience. And I mean, he's been really nice this year. Like the thing I like about him is that he just takes on any defensive challenge that comes to him, because I mean, he's essentially playing the four right now at 6'5". And I mean, he'll guard guards one possession, he'll guard a center the next. Like he's pretty strong, and like I don't want to make it sound like he's doing amazing on defense. Like he's holding his own, but he's switching around to so many different types of players. You know, you got to imagine it's a tough challenge. You got to be quick one play, you got to be strong the next, and then offensively, he's been pretty good. He hasn't been as efficient as he was in the bubble, but again, you know, it was a short, wasn't too much of a sample size. But he's been a pretty reliable shooter, about league average. I like his shot because him and Vassell, they both have these shots that just hang in the air forever, and I always love watching it. And Obi Toppin with the Knicks, who we'll get to later, is kind of like that. Just like really high arcing threes that just take forever to come down. And you always think it's going to be short for some reason, but it's not. So I've liked how he's played. You know, I think they have some better options for starting lineups in general than, you know, the one they've gone with. But I think for the role they've been asking him to play, he's been pretty good.
So, JD, do you want me to approach this next question positively or negatively? Because I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'll ask it in a different light.
Negatively.
Okay. So I have Cleaning the Glass pulled up, our favorite stat site. And I'm just going to read you the differentials of all the players who've played a lot, right? The worst is Keldon Johnson at minus 23.9. Now, I don't know what that means, but I think you'll see where I'm going with this. LaMarcus Aldridge is minus 15.6. Lonnie Walker is minus 14.6. DeMar DeRozan, minus 14.3. DeJounte, plus 5.9. Patty Mills, plus 9.5. Devin Vassell, plus 19.0. Jakob Poeltl, plus 22.6. Rudy Gay, plus 23.1. I don't know if you noticed, JD, all the guys with the positive differentials besides Murray are all bench players.
Absolutely.
So you and I had a text discussion about this last night, but would you change out the LaMarcus Aldridge center position, or what would you do for the starting lineup to make the starting lineup better?
I think one of the biggest things for them right now is they really haven't been able to do what they want to do because players are still hurt. Derek White.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Derek White at all.
Aldridge being hurt was a big loss too, because one thing, the one game Derek White was able to play, they started him, DeJounte, DeMar. DeMar really been playing the 4 this year, and I'm not against it. And I believe, was it Keldon Johnson? I believe it was Keldon Johnson and Aldridge. And I liked it. The reason I liked it is because, for one, Lamar can shoot the ball better than DeMar DeRozan. And with the rest of those guys out there, you want to be able to get downhill if you DeMar. You want to get to the rim. But my biggest thing is right now, if you make any changes to that lineup, because Aldridge just coming back from injury, you don't know if that's the right move to make right now. So just throw him back where he belongs. And if you see that it continues to go downhill, then I make the switch with Poeltl. But now my question is, how does Poeltl and DeMar play together? Can I really trust that pick and roll, pick and pop to be as deadly with Aldridge? I really don't, just because we know Poeltl can't score. They go double up.
I thought what they did in the bubble, though, JD, when they played with, because LaMarcus missed the bubble, and they were playing, their starting lineup they were starting Lonnie instead of Johnson, but that starting lineup just was bombing threes.
Oh, yeah.
Like more than a POC team usually does. And I thought, when Poeltl was playing center, they were having that vertical spacing rather than just the 5 out. Because something I've noticed watching Spurs games is that the floor just seems really cramped. And DeMar's a good passer, but DeMar's not a great passer. And he tries to jam things into areas that he's not that great at. Like, he's not LeBron James.
A lot.
And I just think, I don't know what the solution is, because there's not, other than Patty Mills, and I'm not starting Patty Mills over DeJounte Murray, there's not a great three-point shooter just lying around on this team. And I just, you're definitely right, but I just think that there's ways that they could I think the defense is probably what more they need to focus on rather than the offense on the starting 5. At least that's me.
Yeah, but see, that's one of the things though. By them going so young, I mean, look at the guys that they putting out there. DeJounte, defensive minded, and we all know that. Been second team all defense. Arguably could have been first team a couple times, but we know he's a all defensive team type of guy. Keldon Johnson, he can make his way there. I would prefer Lonnie Walker being on the floor with those guys, because he fits the mode of 3-and-D with enough athleticism to in a fast break, don't be in his way. On the fast break, I mean. But really what the Spurs need to do is go ahead and cut loose Aldridge and DeMar. In the offseason, it was talks of trading Aldridge to Golden State. Golden State would have been a great place for him to go. Philly was interested up in Aldridge. I don't see why that wouldn't work. Let them run the second unit. Then they got Dwight. But anyways, I think it's time to let those two go and let the rest of these guys let the young guys go. Trey Lyles played a lot last season, and he was actually a huge part of what they did. They ran small, put him at the 5. Rudy Gay would run the 4, or they'll switch it depending on what. I think what they need to do is really cut those two guys go, DeMar and Aldridge. I would keep Rudy just a little bit longer, just for the simple fact I think the way Rudy played alongside these younger guys, it's a benefit to keep his value going up. Patty Mills is another one. Right now, he looking great. Patty Mills is looking the best we've ever seen. As long as his value is going up, then you trade him off to another team.
Yeah, and actually that leads me, JD, thank you. You led me right where I wanted to go to ask Dylan. Dylan, you sent me a text last night. Patty Mills might be one of my favorite role players of all time. What have you thought about what you've seen from Patty Mills so far?
Dude, Patty Mills is so good. I mean, like every game, I think if you've watched these games, like one of the things I realized this week was, and you mentioned at the top, I mean, they're just like kind of different every game. Like you don't really know what you're going to get. And I think a lot of that has to do with they don't have a ton of offensive structure. I mean, going off of what JD was just saying, like having DeRozan and Aldridge in there, with those other guys, it seems like there's two different paths kind of colliding here. And Pop, one of the benefits of Pop is that he lets a lot of these guys play their own game. And as JD mentioned, I think that's why DeJounte has been so good this year, because he's just been playing his own game. And I think that's why Derek White was so good last year, because he was doing the same thing. But there's just a lack of structure, and I think that's where a lot of the problems are. But Patty Mills is like the one guy where no matter what's going on, you can expect him to hit a big shot for you. And in that Portland game, I mean, he was killer. Like he was one of the main reasons why they got such a huge lead in that game. And some of the threes he hits are crazy. Like we've known he's a good 3-point shooter for a long time. He's, had roles on really deep playoff runs and title teams and all that. But man, like he'll hit like fadeaways in the corner that you never expect someone like that to hit. Like for his size, it's not like he's shooting over guys like he's KD that's super tall. Like he throws up a lot of shots that you would just never expect a guy his size to hit, and he hits it. And I just love watching him. And it goes the same with Rudy Gay. Like I think Rudy Gay has been a huge part of their bench success. And, we're talking about the struggles of their starting lineup, but they actually have their second most run lineup is actually the most efficient lineup in the league, according to Cleaning the Glass. It's in the 100th percentile. They're plus 38.5 in 115 possessions. And that lineup is Murray, Mills, Vassell, Rudy Gay, and Pirtle. And I think a lot of that has been Mills and Gay just uplifting that. And obviously there's more space on the floor too. But yeah, Patty Mills has been really good, and so is Gay. And as far as what you guys are just talking about with the starting lineup, I mean, it's hard to figure things out when you don't have Derek White. Like, I don't think you can underestimate how good Derek White has become. And if you have him and DeJounte playing together, that's a very explosive backcourt. And I think them two together would be awesome, and it would solve a lot of their offensive struggles. So hopefully he can get back soon, because that is a huge missing piece for them. And right now it feels like they are that one guy short, and I think that's why they've just been so up and down.
I think you definitely can't underplay that. And it's just been, I don't know, watching the Spurs, because I've watched them independent of this week, because, I just like watching the Spurs in general. I think that you're definitely right, because then you bump Lonnie Walker probably back down to the bench. I don't think Keldon Johnson is going to leave the starting lineup anytime soon. I don't think he's the problem. I read the minus 29 point whatever. I don't think that's his fault. I think that's more of the starting lineup doesn't make sense. So that's why all the guys, DeRozan and Aldridge and Walker, they all have terrible plus minuses. And then all the bench guys, I think the team needs to probably be rejiggered, though. I think what JD said is probably the best solution, just letting DeMar and LaMarcus go. And I think LaMarcus is a free agent after this season. And LaMarcus is just getting really old in general. I don't think this is his 15th season. I don't think he can handle, even what he did 2 years ago. I think those days are long gone for LaMarcus Aldridge. And DeMar will be fine. I wouldn't be mad if they kept DeMar around, because he's been a revelation as a 4 on offense. He's been really good. Just the last, couple seasons playing the 4 on offense. But LaMarcus, I think the LaMarcus Aldridge days are done, and they need to get behind the youth movement and start Pirtle. Anything left to say about the Spurs, guys, before we move on to the next team?
No, sir.
Go Spurs, go. Make the playoffs.
This is the Alex and Dylan Basketball Power Hour. Get your homerism out of here.
What?
Hey, I will say I spent a nice 4 days in San Antonio. Beautiful place, man. It's a beautiful place, and part of me wants to become a Spurs fan and just move down on that Riverwalk. I mean, what a city, man. What a city.
On that note, I did not expect. I'm pretty sure the San Antonio Tourism Board will be sending you your paycheck soon, Dylan Hughes. So I think, God, we are not left with a lot of great choices here. Dylan, I'll let you choose. Who do you want to talk about next? Do you want to say the Hawks for last and just get the Knicks over with, or do you want to do it the other way?
Yeah, I got the Knicks stuff up, so we'll go ahead and start there.
All right. So I should have said the Spurs record. It was 8-7. The Knicks are 7-8. Their last 4 games, or actually they only played 3 games this week. So we had a pretty light week in terms of Knicks, thank God. They lost to the Cavs 106-103. They absolutely blew out the Celtics in a game that I figured, hey, the score is big enough where I don't have to watch. 105-75. And then they beat the Orlando Magic 91-84. And they're playing the Warriors tonight, but Dylan, we will be caught dead before we wait for a 10 o'clock tip-off to cover a Knicks game. So, yeah, I'll start with you this time, Dylan, since I started with JD last time. Just general thoughts about the Knicks. How do you... Well, I'll save Randall talk for JD, because I know you don't want to get into that too much. But do you have anything positive to say about the Knicks? I guess I'll start with that.
I have positive things, and they will be attached to negative things. But I think my main takeaway from this week was how good Quickly is. So the numbers don't show it yet as far as plus minus and all that, which, plus minus is iffy, especially in small sample sizes. So it's not worth mentioning right now. But I love Quickly, and it didn't take me long to be I think this guy is already the Knicks' best prospect, which is crazy because they've had so many chances at high picks, and I don't want to say they've whiffed on all of them, but they've definitely not hit on all of them. And Quickly was taken at the end of the first round. And I guess there's just something about Kentucky guards that's just impossible to stop in the NBA, because we have a large sample size of these guys just being awesome. And maybe it's a Calipari thing if you want to throw Rose in there too, which I know you will, Alex.
Oh, that's JD. That's JD. JD's the
You gotta add D Rose in there.
Oh, you're talking about D Rose, yes, of course. Sorry, but JD loves UK. So
Calipari. I mean, look at the guards that come from under him. Look at him, and Julius Randle.
Yeah, I mean, you could get into bigs too. I mean, they've obviously had a great run, and they also Nerlens Noel is also on this roster, which we don't need to discuss too much.
Free Nerlens.
I wouldn't say he needs free.
He's in a good spot. But Quickly, the thing I love about him is that, does he already have the best floater in the league? I mean, his float, I don't think I've seen him miss a floater. And there was, again, in that Magic game, which because of the score, I decided just to watch the highlights because 91-87 is not a game that I want to watch in 2021. But he literally had a floater from the free throw line and it went in. It's like I've talked about this with De'Aaron Fox a lot, where that second season jump he made was so amazing. And we talked about Ja Morant, how he just came into the league and he knew his game. And point guards usually don't do this. Like, a lot of point guards take a couple years to figure things out. I mean, as we were just talking about with the Spurs, like DeJounte Murray's just now getting there. Derek White just got there last season after a few years. And quickly just seems to know what he wants to do right now, and it's working. I mean, he's getting good three-point looks. He's not turning the ball over, which for a lead guard as a rookie is really surprising and rare. He's pretty decent at passing. He hasn't been great with assist wise, but I mean he's made some decent passes, and I really like watching him and comparing him to these other prospects. I mean, RJ Barrett, not a huge fan. Kevin Knox obviously has really disappointed to this point. Obi Toppin still early, but not sure how I feel about him yet. I mean, Dennis Smith Jr., who is only available in garbage time at this point. And obviously Frank Ntilikina. Has Frank even played this year?
He's played 4 games. Is he hurt? He might be hurt. Let's check the injury report.
It says out next to his name, but that
right knee. He is listed as doubtful for tonight's game.
Okay. I feel like that's fake, but we don't need to go into a conspiracy theory here.
It's Basketball Reference, Dylan.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. The truth will come out. We know what Tibbs does to these players behind the scenes. But anyway,
no Tibbs bashing.
Anyway, so RJ Barrett, I want to talk about a little bit. So here's my problem with RJ Barrett. He is very good when he goes to the left. The problem is that he always goes to the left. And I think teams are starting to figure out, hey, let's cut this guy off when he goes to the left. And then it's just RJ Barrett plowing into guys and throwing up awful shots at the rim. I mean, this was a guy that I thought of the top prospects in that draft. I thought he definitely had the biggest chance of busting. And it's obviously too early to call him a bust, and I don't do that with young players. I usually give guys a long time, especially if you look at someone like Cam Payne. I mean, Cam Payne took like 5 years to figure it out. You know, like it just takes time for some of these guys. But Barrett he hasn't improved much from college from what I've seen. I mean, his shot selection is still poor. He makes good passes, but he also makes a lot of dumb passes. He's definitely a good rebounder, which just I think goes with his size. But obviously there's instinctual stuff that comes along with that. Very good at drawing fouls, which part of that is just that he attacks the rim recklessly, and you hope he gets fouled. Otherwise, it's just going to be a terrible miss. So there's things to like about him, but he's got a long way to go. And some of these other guys, I don't know. I don't want to get too off track with Reggie Bullock talk, but you know, I mean, the main takeaway is the Knicks have been better than they usually are, and for that, I think we should celebrate.
I mean, so I pulled out the stats, right? And one thing that our 3 teams this week have in common is that they all have great defenses and horrible offenses. Absolutely horrible. Like the Knicks are scoring 104.6 points a game, which is good for 28th in the league. They're only allowing 106.6 points per 100 possession. I should have said per 100 because that's usually what we do here on the Alex Dillon Basketball Power Hour from Cleaning the Glass. But yeah, the Knicks, 28th in offense, 5th in defense. JD, I don't know how much Knicks you subjected yourself to, but I just answer the question. How much Knicks have you subjected yourself to this season, first of all?
Only nationally televised games.
So when you're watching RJ Barrett, I'm just curious to see what are you thinking about him? Like, do you think this guy should be a lot better? Do you think this guy what do you think about RJ Barrett when you're watching him play?
The first thing that come to my mind is confusion. I think he confused about what he's going to do. He really don't know what he should stand on. Like, what can he call his strong suit? What can he call his go-to move? He really, you know how they say the NBA is a whole nother level. You know how all the dribblers, the ball handlers got to have a counter move. I feel like RJ Barrett is still looking for his counter moves to everything in the NBA. He can't just go by being more athletic than people. He can't just go by being the guy that's left-handed that can get to his left hand no matter what. Now you're going against people who watch the game enough to know if I cut off his left hand, he's going to take 2 dribbles to the right, then stop and look for a pass. You know what I mean? I think that he really got to figure out his place in the NBA. Then being a third overall pick, I think that really is something that may go against him just because he was drafted so high and people had so much expectations of him that I don't think he will ever fill them out. But he could be one of those guys that you give him a little bit of time, he could turn out to be a great role player on a good team. He could be more, but like I said, it's all depending on what will he do with his game? What can he find within himself and say, this is what I'm great at. I can hone in on this while I polish everything else. Could he be a Evan Turner? Like that's the role I'm seeing. So
I don't think he's as good a passer as Turner is, personally.
No, I'm saying like just one of those guys that you know he can do a little bit of everything, but you can't say go out and give me this nightly.
So okay, this is what because I've heard what you both said about RJ Barrett, and you're both making very valid points. I will make one counter to you, Dylan. I know you like Reggie Bullock. He is their only shooter on the floor in their whole starting lineup. Mm-hmm. That's it. They don't have shooters on this team. Absolutely none. If they had shooters around, like if the point guard, because I honestly think it wouldn't be a terrible idea to just let RJ and Julius handle the ball and just have shooters around them. Because Julius, I think, is a great passer. And we'll get to your Julius Randle. I can feel it stewing. It's the elephant in the proverbial room right now. Dylan Hughes' hate for Julius Randle. But I mean, I like his feel for the game. I do think you're right, though. It does have an over tendency to dribble to his left. And he's 20. He's 20 and there's no space on the floor. If there was space on the floor and he was drafted by, I don't know, just some team with more space, right? Some team with more shooters, I think he would be looking a lot better than he is right now. But they just have nobody. That's why they should start quickly or maybe even start Rivers. They should probably be starting Rivers. Like, I don't know why they're insisting on starting Peyton over Rivers because it just doesn't make sense to me personally. This team doesn't have any space. The floor is so clogged because Randall shooting a career high, he's shooting 35%. I've never seen Mitchell Robinson take a jump shot that wasn't in one of those hype videos, the offseason training camp videos. And Elfrid Payton, oh God, don't even bring that up. And Reggie Bullock's a good shooter. I'll give him that. But I don't think Reggie Bullock can't be what JJ Redick was for the 76ers, where he was their spacing. He can't do that. And honestly, Knicks wouldn't be a terrible JJ Redick destination. But I don't know. I just don't think that there's enough space for him to operate. But Dylan, I'll let you rebut. Do you have any rebuttals to what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I agree. And again, as I said, the youth part, I give guys time to figure things out. But I mean, the spacing makes sense too, because, I mean, Zion has the same spacing issues in New Orleans, but he's just so damn strong that he's able to figure it out. But Barrett definitely needs space because, again, a lot of these problems with him plowing into 2 or 3 defenders is because there's absolutely no space around him. And I definitely think if they had more space, he would be better. But I still am just not a huge fan of the shot selection. But, again, he's very young and he's got to figure things out. And he's going to get opportunities in that offense. I mean, he's outside of Randall, he's the guy touching the ball the most. So he's going to get plenty of run this season to figure things out. And hopefully by next season or even after the trade deadline, there's a little bit more room for him to run around.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're almost done with the Knicks, but we got to talk about Julius Randle. And I'm going to throw it to JD first because actually wait, before we move on to Julius Randle. They said that RJ Barrett and Zion were going to have more space in the NBA than they did at Duke. I think the spacing might have been a little better at Duke than it is right now it's right now in the NBA. They both play for teams that are just like, nah, fuck it. We're not going to shoot threes. Like, I'm pretty sure the Knicks are last in field. Hold on. So I have the Knicks page pulled up. So shoot 3-point frequency. So, oh my God, 29.3% of their shots are threes, according to Cleaning the Glass. That is good for 30th. It's good for 30th. Now let's do the Spurs, a team that we just pointed out does not shoot a lot of threes. I will bet you it is a good amount higher. That's shooting frequency. The Knicks, okay, the Spurs are at 30.6%. They're 27th. How are the Spurs higher than you? That's damning.
Patty Mills.
That's probably fair. If Patty Mills were on this team would look a lot better. They're not going to get Patty Mills, and I'm not going to wish this on Patty Mills. But, JD, let's talk about Julius Randle. He has been having a phenomenal start to the season so far. He is averaging, off the top of my head, so I actually pulled up the stats right now. It's 23 points a game, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 48% from the field. JD, how do you like how Julius Randle's been looking so far?
I think he's the reason they winning. I think one thing I can say about Julius Randle, he always had this part to his game. Like, he could always do this. But, it's always a but somewhere. But the thing with Julius Randle is he's finally not only got the freedom, but he learned how to do this under control. Julius Randle had to be the most out of control person trying to do everything he's doing now since his second season in the league. He been wanting to play that point forward position forever. But the thing is, when you're as big as Zion and you spinning around as if you Andrew Wiggins going to the hole every time, but you're trying to make a jumping pass every time, you're going to continue to foul or you're going to turn it over. Like this just what he was doing. But now I think he found some composure. He learned how to do these things and when to do it. He's not going out there and just forcing his spin move anymore. He's not going out there and just playing bowling. He's actually, I think what came along was what Dylan hinted at about a lot of these guys being young. He's finally matured enough to know, all right, this is what I'm good at. This is how I should do it, when I should do it. He learned his place. The only problem is he's on the Knicks. How valuable is what you're doing anywhere else? I think if Julius Randle played like this in New Orleans, it would have been a good thing alongside Anthony Davis. Been a great thing. But the problem is, can you really depend on him to do it when he got other guys around him that can show up every night? Is it going to be a detriment to the team, which we have seen before? Not granted, he was on the Lakers, wasn't that much talent over there at the time. But at the same time, you doing these things, you're doing it to the point where you're making your teammates bad and making yourself look bad. Being over there right now, I think who we gonna put on the who can we put out there and say they're just as all around as good as him? We just talked about RJ Barrett. He's still finding his game out. I think right now this is the best time for Julius Randle to show what he capable of, do what he doing. Hell, build your value up and get out of there and go to a team that may be able to use you in a Draymond role.
Dylan, I'm gonna throw an entry pass to you. Get out of the way.
Everything that JD said was right on the head. So Julius Randle has been good this season. There's no doubt about that. He's points, rebounds, assists, and 3-point percentage, all career highs. So watching these games, I was just waiting. I was waiting for him to do something wrong so I could get mad, because that's just what I come in with. That's what I come in with. And it did take a while for me to get mad. And I mean, he really has found his shot from like all levels. I mean, his 3-point shot's looking good. He's very smart in the paint. Like he's got that hook shot down. I mean, he knows exactly how to use his body to get good angles and all that stuff that these big men that can handle the ball figure out. So as far as his own game, he has looked good. The problem is, as JD was talking about, is that this is the only situation where he can be good. He has to be the best player on the team. He has to. And this is what I've said for so long, because when he was in New Orleans, that was when I started to not like him. I liked him in with the Lakers. I thought he was pretty good on defense, especially towards the end of his tenure there. Like he figured it out on defense. And offense, I mean, he's been a similar style of player on offense. As JD mentioned, he's been kind of out of control at some points, and he's figured that out now. But when he was in New Orleans, he wanted to be the guy. And when you're playing with Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday, you can't be the guy. And you could tell that the efficiency with him on the floor is just not the same. He was putting numbers up, but the rest of the team around him was not playing that well. And it's the same thing with this Knicks team. I mean, right now they look pretty decent. They've been winning more games than we have expected, but he cannot have – if someone on this team like Quickly or Barrett all of a sudden starts demanding a ton of attention on offense and they need the ball more, you're just going to have Randle standing around and these numbers are going to start to go down, because he just has to have the ball. And the point that I finally got mad at him when I was watching him was, so I was just thinking, if I'm a Knicks teammate and I give the ball to him off a rebound, I know I'm not getting it back. He's going to dribble the whole way down and look for his shot. And there was a moment where he ran into the paint and there was 3 guys waiting for him. He chucked the ball out to the corner like 5 feet over the shooter's head. It's like he doesn't know what to do if he's going to the rim and it's not there. He's just looking to dump the ball off on someone else. And, I mean, his passing numbers are good. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad passer, but he tries to dump the ball too much when he does not get what he wants. And that, I think that's the next step for him is figuring out how to move the ball the right way and not just strictly look for his shot, because that's when some of that out of control recklessness comes back. And it hurts the team. It does. Like if he's the guy that's going to be your number one scorer and he can handle the ball a bunch, then, you know, you're going to be a decent team. Like, you're going to be able to score and you're going to win some games, but you definitely have a pretty hard ceiling and you can't expect the surrounding teammates to be doing much. So that's one thing. If Quickly does end up starting, that's what I'm going to watch out, is when you have a guy that needs the ball, what's going to happen with Randle? And I would imagine that he's probably going to start having those career high numbers start to come down a bit.
So I will say, watching Julius Randle, there was one play that I saw him make where there was a guy cutting from the wing. And he was eyeballing the guy who was cutting, right, from the wing. And then Randall found a shooter wide open in the corner. Those kind of reads are the kind of reads you want to see. Now, I can't disagree with your points, Dylan, but I think he's getting there. And I think he's smart enough where he can get there. I mean, obviously, yes, he needs the ball a lot, but I don't know. I think he could put up like 20, like maybe not 20, but maybe like 18, 10, and 5 and be effective somewhere. I don't know. I think that he's not particularly lost. Now, his defense is terrible. His defense is absolutely atrocious. Because there's just a lot of times where he's the big guy inside because Robinson is on the perimeter for whatever, and he just does not rotate. He does not do a particularly great job of boxing out. And he's 26 now. There's no excuse for that. If you haven't learned now, you're never gonna learn. But on offense, I think he's a good player. I think he's good.
That's the problem. I think he put too much energy for offense than defense. Because I've seen him be a great guy that boxes out. I've seen him rotate. I've seen him switch and be a nuisance to ball handlers. But how many times have I seen it? I could count on my hand. That's the problem. I think he's capable of doing those things, but I think he's one of them guys that's caught up in what the league is. It is a half fast-paced game where it's bucket for bucket, and if you really want to be one of the best, make sure that it's a fast-paced game so you can get your numbers. Think about all the guys that play slower paced games in all these teams. What's being said about them? Low numbers as far as viewing ratings. They're considered boring. A lot of times these guys looking more into what's gonna get them paid versus what's gonna make them better, they team better, and get them a ring. Look at Miami. Miami was the team with an ultimate sacrifice last year that played fast all season and literally in the playoffs had one of the best half-court games. Why? Because they knew they wanted to win. Literally, Julius Randle can pretty much be similar to a Bam Adebayo if he literally committed on the defensive end to be a little bit more assertive and energetic the same way he is offensively. You will get those same passes. You're going to outrun guys. Like he could do these things, but will he make the ultimate sacrifices of his numbers to do that, like a Bam Adebayo? Instead of looking for those numbers, will he just let it come to him?
It's an excellent question. And I think that's probably where we should move on from the Knicks. I think that was a really good capper there, JD. I do want to shout out Mitchell Robinson because he's been playing pretty well on the interior for the Knicks, but I think that the team is so flawed defensively that he's probably not going to get the shine that he deserves. I think he's been pretty good, all things considered, for the Knicks this year. But let's move on to Dylan Hughes' Atlanta Hawks. I like to say, I feel like Dylan has a soft spot in his heart for the Hawks. So they're currently 7-7. This last week, they got destroyed by the Jazz, 116-92. They lost a close one to Portland, 112-106. They beat the Timberwolves, 108-97, and they beat the Pistons 123-115 in overtime. Now, Dylan, the Hawks are missing Bogdan Bogdanovic and Danilo Gallinari. Probably their two most important free agent signings and the two that probably elevated them for us as one of our favorite teams. But what have you liked from what you've seen from Atlanta this week?
Yeah, the injuries have been tough. I mean, Gallo's basically missed the whole season at this point, and Bogdan he's going to be out for a long time, it seems like. So, unfortunately, like those were the two guys that we were like, okay, this Atlanta team is going to score a shit ton of points because you have two really nice creators and floor spacers out there with Trey and Capella down low. That it's going to be a lot of points scored. And unfortunately, those two are out right now. So they've been having some lineup difficulties. This week, we didn't really get to see Reddish, and Hunter has missed a game too. So there's been a lot of different players. We've seen some Nathan Knight action, who I believe got some love on our preview pod because he has the same birthday as me, if I recall correctly. So happy to see a fellow September 20th birthday get some shine on the floor. But so, you would expect us to talk Trae Young, and we will get to him. But the first guy I want to talk about is Capella. And we knew Capella was going to be good with Trae. I mean, it made way too much sense because we know how Capella was with James Harden. I mean, those are two of the best guys in the league at running a high pick and roll. And Capella is one of the best guys at finishing them. And, I mean, Capella has been a monster. I mean, in that Pistons game yesterday, he had like 26 points, 25 rebounds, and 5 blocks, I think, which I saw a graphic of like how small the company is. I forget who's on it, but it's rare to see a game like that. And I mean, especially battling somehow one of the best scorers in the league, Jeremy Grant, which I'm almost excited to get to the Pistons part of our podcast within the next couple months, because Jeremy Grant is just all of a sudden an awesome scorer now. I don't know how that happened, but I mean, Capella has been so good at cleaning rebounds up. I mean, we know he's a great rebounder, but I mean, Atlanta is one of the best rebounding teams in the league because him and John Collins are so good at rebounding. And Capella right now has an offensive rebounding percentage of 14.2, which is way up there in the league, and it's a career high for him. And I mean, he just cleans everything up. And I think a lot of those rebounds are off his own misses because he's been attacking the rim a lot more. Like, he's actually been dribbling a little bit and going up. And he's not so comfortable with that, so he's been missing some bunnies, but he cleans them right up and puts them back away. And on the defensive end, obviously, he's been just as good, challenging guys. And I talked on our Nets podcast last week or 2 weeks ago about how he just killed DeAndre Jordan. I mean, I'm happy he's finally healthy because he has looked really good. And I did the math on his stats in the 4 games this week. And he is in the 4 games this week, he averaged 23 points, 17 rebounds, and 3 blocks on 66% shooting. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And when you add in what John Collins has been, and see, if you look at John Collins's counting stats, he's not doing great compared to the years prior. But you got to realize that this team has a lot. He's not the second option like he was. There's a lot to go around now. So his numbers are down, but he still has his moments. I mean, that Pistons game, he was awesome. He had 30 points, and he was getting everything to go in. And he's benefited, obviously, from Gallo being out. And in our preview pod, we were talking about how they might need to trade Collins because he's due for a contract this upcoming offseason, and he's going to be a bench big for them. But I mean, he's been playing so well, and he fits great with Capella. He on his own, he's a plus 21.4 this season. Again, small sample size, but that's pretty awesome. And with Capella, he's plus 15.9. So he is playing really well with Capella, and I was kind of wondering is he going to have to be – is he a 4? Is he a small ball 5? Like, what really is he? And his play with Capella has shown he's definitely a 4, and in the moments where he's played the 5, they've been really bad defensively. So I don't think that's in his future. But those are the 2 guys that really stood out to me this week. I mean, again, like, we'll get to Trae. He hasn't looked great. But those were the 2 guys that I think really anchored them in their wins. And another guy that really stood out to me was Kevin Huerter. I think Huerter has developed into like the perfect secondary ball handler for that team. I mean, he fits that role perfectly because he can handle the ball, but he shouldn't be your primary ball handler. He's a guy that can take a pass from Trae, beat a closeout, and either get a shot up or make a good pass. I mean, he has just gotten really good at finding his rhythm, and he slowly, I think this is his third season now, he's become more efficient in every single shooting category. He's better at the rim. He's been shooting a lot more mid-range this year, and he's been shooting well on those shots. So I really like watching him, and he's been really nice playing alongside Trey. And, of course, with Bogdanovich out, he's getting a lot more time. But those were the three guys that stood out to me. There's obviously a lot of other guys to get to, but those were the three that I think this week really looked good in their wins, especially.
So, JD, now I got to come back to you with the negativity. So, Trae Young has not – he got off to a blazing start the first, 3 or 4 games of the season. But now he's really come back down to earth. He is shooting 39% from the field, 29.5% from three. He is getting to the line 10 times a game, which is really good. But, JD, do you think the Hawks can win with Trae Young shooting that poorly?
No, but I think part of the reason why let me say this, that team is going to go where Trae Young goes, right? But what's interesting is because of some of these guys have developed and don't need Trae as much, I think it's hurting Trae. His shots, he's a volume shooter, right? The lower his shot attempts, the lower he scores. His shot numbers are down from last season. His free throws went up, but they went down since the Brooklyn game when he took, I think, 16 free throws. They've been down since then. So what I'm getting at is Trae Young is the up and down of this team, but because his shot is so important for him, if he's shooting bad, they won't be able to make it or survive. Because I think one thing for sure that when he's shooting great, now you know he's having fun. He's gonna make you look foolish. He's gonna get in his bag, right? But I think part of that goes into if he's playing bad, John Collins play bad. John Collins and Trae Young had arguably the best pick and roll game last year. Number one in points for most of the season. I didn't know if they finished there or not, but they were 1 and 2 together, right? John Collins took a big step back because of the Capella addition. But you could tell John Collins even seems unsatisfied or uncomfortable because he's only as good as Trae Young. That is his number one. In other words, who can I say? I need a good comparison of this guy revealed my true self to me on the court, where I couldn't play as great without this guy. Know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say, I mean, we saw last season how bad Draymond was when Steph wasn't out there.
Yeah. Perfect.
This season, Draymond has looked great because Steph has looked great.
Perfect. Best thing I could do. Best thing you could say. And I think because of that, John Collins is looking a little uneased. Trae Young needs his teammates to need him. Kevin Huerter making the steps as far as, all right, I can dribble a little bit and create my shot. I don't have to be a catch and shoot or a 2-dribble pull-up guy. Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, we know that they both are great cutters, right? But now they both able to put the ball down a little bit and get to the rim. Only person who really needs, I'm not going to keep saying need as in he can't do anything himself, but he relies on Trae Young because their chemistry is so good together that he soars when Trae is at his best. Capella going to get his. Capella will look good giving you 10 points. Why? Because Capella not a volume scorer. We don't look for Capella to score. We look to, all right, you go catch these lobs when you got to. We know you going to be a great offensive rebounder. You going to get out on the break before the other teams. But, man, this is his role. That was John Collins' role last year because he was playing that small ball 5. Now playing him at the 4 next to Capella, Trae Young got somebody who can do what you do going to the rim a lot better than you. Now John Collins got to shoot the ball more, and he's not completely comfortable with that shot because he's not able to get the layups and dunks he was getting last year. And now Trae Young taking even less shot attempts. They can't win without it. Trae Young gets the end all be all for that team. I do think he's going through a shooter slump. I don't think he's a shooter that you can depend on if he take those. You know how Steph could take 8 threes and only make 5, and the game is literally going their way. I don't think Trae Young can be that guy because he needs to take more than 8 threes. Because if he only take 8 threes, he probably only got about 17, 18 shot attempts.
Yeah, Trae is interesting case study because I don't think anything you said was wrong. I think once he's back, once the Bogey and Gallo are back to being healthy, Bogey will do a really good job of helping him, get some pressure, release off dribbling the ball all the time. Because I think, Dylan, you might have noticed that too. Like, it feels like teams are guarding Trae different this year. It feels like they're kind of guarding him more like just up close and personal. And JD, you brought up after the Brooklyn game, he is only taking 8 free throw attempts a game after the Brooklyn game, and the shooting percentages after that, he's shooting 35% from the field and 27% from 3 after that game. It's not very pretty, but yeah, Dylan, I'll just ask you: do you think that Trae can play off ball, and do you think that he will play off ball once Bogdanović gets back?
I think he could. I don't know if that's the best way to go completely. I mean, I can see the benefit of it. I would like to see if he's a guy that can start coming off screens and hitting shots, because those are the best way to free up good shooters is screens. I mean, we know this. And, everyone's compared him to Steph. And I think one of the things that makes Steph a very unique shooter and just player in general is how many screens he sets. So it's obviously different with Trae because he's so small, but just taking the action to set a screen, whether it's a good screen or not, is going to change the dynamic of your offense. And I think if you had Trae run more screens, and that was also something that helped Kyle Korver a lot. I mean, it's funny watching Kyle Korver because this dude would screen anyone at all times. Like, go back and watch a game of Kyle Korver. He would literally just screen random people on the complete other side of the floor. I mean, and it's because he knows what that does for a shooter. And I think that's one of the benefits of having a guy like Bogdanović come in is that he can handle the ball and he can run your offense if you need that. And at moments, you want Trae to have the ball in his hands because, again, the pick and roll with Capella and Collins is damn near unstoppable, and that's something that you want. And you always want the ball in the hands of a good passer like Trae. But it would be interesting to see if he could become a different type of shooter, not just one of these pull-up guys that's going to have someone set a screen for him so he can get an open look from 33 feet out or whatever, 30 feet out. I would like to see if he can become more of an off-ball guy that's setting screens and moving around a little bit more and coming off of pin downs and all that and getting him some good open looks off the ball. I think that would be interesting if Lloyd Pierce could implement more of that in their offense.
Absolutely agree, Dylan. I completely agree. I think when you think of all the great shooters, look at J.J. Redick in Philly. Setting screens for Ben Simmons just because he was getting it back. when you think of all the great shooters at the point guard position, Kyrie Irving can play without the ball. Does he prefer to play without the ball? No. Can he play without the ball? Yes. His pull-up game is insane. Damian Lillard can play without the ball. Look at both of his most memorable game winners. One where he pulled up. The first one was without the ball. Came off a screen, ran, and got a shot. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. You mentioned Kyle Korver. All of these guys can play without the ball. But when you a point guard, yes, it's great to be able to pull up and get your shot whenever. That's what make you so great at being a shot creator. But can you still be a threat without the ball? I was noticing in a lot of the films that, like a lot of videos I watched, when Trey don't got the ball, he kind of do what I said Harden did last season. He's sitting the couple seasons. He's sitting at the logo. Does he have that range? Yeah. So somebody gonna respect him enough, but it's gonna come a time, just like Golden State realized when Chris Paul had the ball and James Harden did. He's not looking to be invested in playing unless he had the ball. Will Trae Young fall into that trap? I don't know. But you don't want to do that when you already on a team with veterans who know what you can do. Rajon Rondo gonna be in his ear, telling him what he could become. Gallinari gonna tell him what he can become. Capella gonna tell you what you can become and what you don't want to become, or what label can be put on you if you do certain things. Know what I'm saying? So I think he got the ability to avoid all of that, but I don't know if he's really gonna fall into playing without the ball because he's so comfortable playing with it. And it's one of them things that you're so great, it's a detriment to what you can become.
Yeah, I think great points were made all around. I want to touch on DeAndre Hunter a little bit myself before we go, because I think we touched on just about everything. But I think DeAndre Hunter has taken a step forward this year. I really love the way he's been playing on both ends of the floor. He's shooting a lot better. He's shooting 40% from three, which, is a marked improvement from 35% last year. He's just better all around, and I think the Hawks are better for it. And I think that between him and Reddish and Herter, that's a hell of a three-man wing rotation. Dylan, before we go, anything else you want to touch on about the Hawks?
Yeah, I've always been interested in Reddish. I thought he was a guy that was going to be one of those late lottery picks that was going to really surprise people because, going into Duke, coming out of Duke, I should say, I think people started to fall out of love with him, I think, because his shooting at Duke was awful. I think he shot like 40% from two, and people were really doubting whether he was going to be able to survive in the league. And it goes back to the point about Barrett and Zion earlier, like there just wasn't much space. So, and you have Trey Jones there too, who wasn't a great shooter, and whatever Plumlee was the center. It seems like there's been a Plumlee center at Duke for the past 15 years, but there just wasn't a ton of spacing, and I think that impacted his shot. And he hasn't been great from the field still, but I think he's smart, man. I think he's going to figure it out on offense. It may take a while, but this is a guy I think we need to be patient with on offense because it may take 4 or 5 years. He's still very raw and he makes mistakes and his shot still isn't great. But I think he's smart. He's athletic. I think he's going to eventually come along, and playing with these other guys there is going to help him because he's going to get a lot of opportunities to attack closeouts and things like that. And obviously defensively, we know he's really good. And again, playing with Hunter, I do think that is a great lineup. And that's just why I love this team so much because there's so much youth, but there's also so much talent. And despite being young, these guys have proven that they're good at the NBA level now, but they still have a lot of room to grow. And Hunter is one of those guys I kind of look at as like a finisher. He's the guy you can swing to that's going to hit the shot when you really need it. And we've seen this season when he's been out there that he's gotten a lot better compared to last season at hitting those jump shots you want at the end of the shot clock if there's too much pressure on Trey or whatever. So he's a guy I'm really liking too. So and we've seen with some of these Virginia guys that I think Virginia and Villanova guys are always the ones you just kind of expect them to be solid. And I think he can definitely go above solid. I think he can be pretty good. So I'm excited to watch them the rest of the year. We'll come back to them later in the year when they're healthy, and I'm looking forward to that because there's a lot to be seen with this team that we haven't gotten to yet.
No doubt. By the way, Dylan, I looked up what you were saying about Capella, how many guys, had the 25, and 5 blocks in a game. It's been 12 guys to do it through the history of the league that they've kept track of. Because as you know, and this should always be said when you're counting any stat, Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell probably did this each 50 times. Okay, now that caveat's out of the way, Kareem did it 3 times. He probably also did it more because it was the first however many years of his career they did not count blocks. But Kareem did it 3 times, all of them in LA. Capella yesterday. Ewing did it in 1997. Artis Gilmore, Elvin Hayes, Bob McAdoo, Dikembe Mutombo, Shaquille O'Neal, and Akeem the Dream Olajuwon. Those are your 12 guys who have done it. So pretty good company for my boy Clint.
Yeah, and the thing about rebounds, I think the way I look at rebounds now is that you got to take 25% off because there's just so many more 3-point shots going up. A lot of these rebounds you wouldn't be getting back in the days that some of those guys were playing. So when we're looking at the historical stuff, I usually take 25% off. So that would still have Capella in the low 20s, which is pretty good. But yeah, I mean, that's great company. And Capella has had some really high rebound games outside of that too. So I think it wouldn't be shocked if he gets another game like that this season because, I mean, even the scoring, he's been so efficient from the field. I mean, 25 points isn't out of bounds either. So I don't know. Maybe he can. Was Kareem the only guy that did it more than once?
Hakeem did it twice.
Okay, so that's Capella's next goal is to be the 2 times club.
With Akeem Olajuwon, better. There's worse company to be in than with Akeem Olajuwon. Yes. JD, I think anything else you want to touch on with the Hawks before we wrap things up here?
Just to touch on what Dylan said about Reddish, I thought of something. You know what Reddish can do to just become an overall better player and fix that shooting well? Call up my boy Jimmy Butler. Call up Jimmy. Listen, focus the rest of this season on being a defensive stopper. Now you come back after a summer with Jimmy. I bet you he learned how to affect the game even when he shoot bad. And he'll have more confidence in his shot. Because there's times now where he look a little hesitant. But I'm telling you, that's somebody who can get you right, man. Not right as in he gonna fix your problem, but he been in that spot before. Go talk to Jimmy, Cam. Go talk to Jimmy, young buck.
Go talk to James. My name is literally Jimmy Butler.
No respect for Brett Brown.
And then I think that's gonna wrap everything up for us. We did a pretty good job keeping this under an hour and a half today. All right. I remember the name of the book on the last podcast. From One Young Soul to Another. Okay. Dylan Hughes' book. If you don't buy this, I am going to... See, I don't want to say anything that'll actually get me in trouble. That's the problem here with my threats of escalating violence. If you don't buy Dylan Hughes' book, I will come to your house and I will eat your food. All of it. Every single last bit of it. Even if I don't like it. Even if it's like pickles. I hate pickles. I will eat the pickles despite you because you did not buy Dylan Hughes' book. Just out of pure vengeance. Dylan, was that good enough for you, man?
Wait, let me add on.
Okay,
And when the world goes into the Walking Dead times, I'll sacrifice you to the walkers if you don't bat a book. There you go, Dylan.
I'm telling you, man. When I actually have a budget, I'm sending you guys out on a trail of some sort. It could just be wandering around in libraries or something, but Barnes and Noble maybe. But I'm telling you, man, this is exactly what I need to get off the ground here. And I mean, threatening to eat someone's food is like one of the most inconvenient things you could ever run into. I mean, having to take a trip out to the crowded store on a weekend, I mean, that's something that I fear drastically to ever have to do. So I think that's one of the worst things you could tell someone. So I appreciate that, Alex.
You know, I just try my best, Dylan, because it's hard to come up with something that will actually get me in trouble. Because I'm not going to say I'm going to murder them, right? That's a bridge too far for me.
That's too far. Yeah.
JD basically said he murdered them, but only in in a very specific scenario. So
I didn't murder them technically,
but you're not murdering them either.
Technically, all I'm doing is not saving them.
That's a whole moral dilemma that we could get into some other time, but not right now. Go listen to Facts and Stats relationship series, right? That's still going on?
Yeah, man, yeah. I got a couple of things going on, man. But I'm about to close out the series real soon.
And then Dylan is actually reading his book for you on YouTube. So if you don't want to read it, you can make it really fucking easy for yourself and just, listen to it. God damn it. That's going to be real easy for you. Also subscribe to his newsletter. Otherwise you're a coward. That's Heavy Pockets. Subscribe to that. The Running Cook Podcast Network. JD, you guys just put out a tremendous episode of The Battleground with maybe the best call-out corner ever, which is saying something.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was crazy. I can't believe that guy did them like that. But thanks to Bryce and Zach, that guy is surrounded by great people. And by that guy, I mean myself.
And for those of you that are curious, JD absolutely ripped apart his childhood football team. Actually, still his football team, but
still my football team.
Just absolutely ripped them to shreds, and rightfully so. I felt everything that you were saying. Triple option pass. They're going to come out with an episode the same day that we are. So if you want your college football fix after the NBA, sounds like it's going to be a pretty lengthy episode. So Linsanity is doing their NFL coverage. Go check that out, especially because, the next couple of weeks are going to be pretty big in the NFL world, guys. I don't know if you heard, this weekend's the championship games.
Please, Green Bay lose. No, Green Bay win. Green Bay win. Green Bay win.
You were left with a horrible array of choices, my friend, JD.
No, listen. I wouldn't be mad if Patty Mahomes won again. I don't want nobody else to win. I'd be fine if the Bills won, but I don't necessarily care for them to win. I like Patrick Mahomes though. But I want Green Bay to win for this reason and this reason only. I would love for them to get to the Super Bowl and lose. Division. Listen, we in the same division. I don't want them to ever win, but if it's gonna mean that the loss is greater, take the win when you can. Take the win, but losing the Super Bowl, to know that they had their hopes up so high. One thing about being a Bears fan, we ain't got to dream that far. I never do. But I want them to think they so close to grabbing it. And then Patty beat them about 42-0. Oh, man. I'm telling you. I would be on the battleground welcoming every Green Bay fan I could find.
Hogshead is in for the ride of his life. Dylan, do you want to throw out a quick championship Super Bowl matchup prediction?
Man, I don't want Brady to go again, but just something in my heart tells me Green Bay's going to choke. I mean, look what happened last year, man. They got fucked. I mean, San Francisco killed them. And part of me thinks the same thing's going to happen again. So for safety reasons, I think I'm going to go the Buccaneers on that side. The other side obviously depends on Mahomes' health. But, man, part of me is leaning towards Buffalo. I just like the way they've played all year. Josh Allen has really reined himself in, and him and Steph Diggs are awesome together. And they don't have much of a running game. I mean, Josh Allen's their best running back. But I really like what the Bills have done, and their Super Bowl history is not great. They've had some major tough losses in the past. So part of me is kind of pulling for them. Hopefully they can win it all for that. But as long as Brady doesn't win, I'm fine with whatever happens.
So I'll just throw out there, I'm going to go Kansas City, Green Bay, because that's the matchup I want to see. But I don't know.
It would be fun. That would be real fun.
Like, I want to see Rodgers versus Mahomes, because who knows how much longer Rodgers has left. And again, I'm kind of with JD here. I want JD to win by the Packers losing. That's what I want.
Thank you. I really appreciate the love and support.
Of course. I mean, that's all I'll do for you, though, JD. I'm not going to support you any other way.
Oh no, it's fine. That is. If I could ask you for anything for Christmas, if you can deliver that, just let me know you support that.
I mean, I'm not Dylan Hughes. I can't manifest, trades going away from my phone and then them just happening. I'm not Dylan Hughes. So, and then real quick, last podcast I think I have to promote, because I think I did the other ones, was Circle City Cinema, and I'll be back on again to do WandaVision, the MCU show. So Caleb Lynn will be joining us on some point on that, and that'll be fun. So Dylan, JD, thank you both. This was an awesome episode.
Thanks for having me, fellas. Really appreciate it. Great guys.
So tacking this on again, because I keep forgetting and we keep having wonderful, wonderful outros, and I just keep ruining them. Our teams for next week. So we're doing the Milwaukee Bucks, the Utah Jazz, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sexland, as they say, as the cool kids say. Dylan Hughes, this was a great episode. Thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you.